I am Yarel Marshall, the program chair for the Women's Leadership Council. And I'd like to welcome you all. The mission of the WLC is to build and sustain a network of support for all women identifying Trinity College alumni and students. The WLC creates opportunities for mentorship in which alumni connect with one another and or undergraduates. In addition, the WLC provides experiences and benefits that assist alumni throughout their lives in both personal and professional endeavors. The WLC also encourages alumni to support the college philanthropically and strives to foster an engaged and dynamic community from which to identify future leaders who will help amplify the voices of all Trinity women. Now, I just wanted to share with you that as your program committee chair, this type of program is exactly what I strive for, to be able to invite our alumni to connect in ways that we may not all the time, as well as see and hear our alumni that many times may not be seen and heard. So all that to say that tonight's program is the third part of our wellness and self-care series. We plan to record Tanya's remarks and then turn the recording off during the question and answer portion to make sure that everyone feels comfortable sharing their thoughts freely. So those that have missed it will have an opportunity to know what it's about, but you are benefiting from the actual interaction with the question and answer portion. So I'm so glad you made it. Feel free to use the chat to ask questions. You can ask me directly or one of us directly, or in general. You might want to make note of who you want to read read your question. And that way we can protect your privacy if that is what's important for you. Again, this is a safe space for all of us. And in addition, Tanya will let us know if she has any specific suggestions to get the most out of tonight's program. I do want to take advantage and let you know about some upcoming programs. On December 7th, Tanya will be rejoined with Eve Marie Perugini and Sophie Wadsworth as they come together in full circle on the wellness and self-care panel. And we're already planning for next semester. So one of the things that we're exploring are the issues that are facing women and work. The topics include the great quit, work-life balance, imposter syndrome, deciding not to work outside the home, and returning to work. So if you have any ideas for other topics, or you would like to recommend a speaker or volunteer yourself, please reach out to myself or Melissa. We are in the planning stages, but the more the merrier, as well as we want to make this conversation as intentional as possible. So your input is just as important. And finally, we hope that you'll share your feedback in our post-event survey that you will receive in an email tomorrow. That feedback allows us to get a better feel for how the event went and what you would like to see next, and how we can make things better, because that's the only way that we can improve. So now it's time for me to introduce one of my favorite people, Miss Tanya Jones. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background about her. If I can find it, where did I put it? Give me one sec. This is what the producer does, goes all over the place and has all these things. I don't know, Tanya, you tell me, but I'm getting there. Okay. Yeah. So let me tell you Tanya's story. The same day Jones received a job offer at a television network in New York City, She was also offered 2 other jobs in social services in her hometown of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Having just graduated with a degree in sociology from Trinity College, social services made sense on paper, but television was calling her. She was excited about the possibilities of all 3 opportunities. While it was a tough decision, before she knew it, she was on a Peter Pan bus heading north. Jones has produced countless series for television networks and digital platforms for over 2 decades. As a writer, producer, and director, Tanya's work has aired on networks like A&E, PBS, Discovery Channel, Food Network, HGTV, and Disney. She joined Meredith Corporation's Branded Entertainment Division in 2008 to help produce content across TV and digital from 2008, TV and digital. From 2008 to 2020, Jones collaborated with brands like Amazon Studios, Walmart, Target, L'Oreal, Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, and Home Depot. Jones and her A team work closely with content strategists, sales, and marketing to distribute high-quality social-first video content across Meredith's iconic brands like People, Better Homes and Gardens, All Recipes, Food and Wine, and Shape. Jones garnered multiple awards and honorable mentions in the most profitable branded content vertical from Meredith Digital Group. Alongside 12 successful years at Meredith, Jones spent weekends and evenings completing a 9-month training with Leadership That Works. That's the name of the organization, Leadership That Works. In 2014, she became a certified professional coach and has since helped women and men transform and cultivate new mindsets and actions towards personal power and transformation. She coaches clients one-on-one in the areas of career, relationships, and personal growth. Tanya is an active member and ongoing career coach for New York Women in Communications, offering pro bono services for members. After bravely leaving a successful career at Meredith, Tanya founded Mama Bear Media Group, LLC in 2020. She has set the stage to elevate her expertise in her way, combining production and coaching under a single vision to serve and inspire. What an amazing story already. Here you go, Tanya, take it away.
Thank you. That was lovely. You can read my bio anytime. I'll just play the recording at my next interview. Or thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. This is kind of surreal. If you told me back in the 90s that I would be doing a talk for Trinity, I don't know. Part of me wouldn't be that surprised because I was such a cheerleader for the school and such an ambassador. My friends used to call me the mayor. They would always say, oh, you know, going across campus with Tanya, you're always being stopped by someone. You're always, you know, running into someone, or you can't go to a party with Tanya because she'll leave you as she talks to everybody else. So I'm really happy to be here. I'm going to share my screen now because I am going to present to you what we're talking about tonight, which is unlocking your gifts. And I'm really big on words. So unlocking your gifts, to me, it's like, ooh, what exactly are we unlocking? Give me a second. Let me just move some things around and go full screen. There we go. So we're talking about unlocking your gifts. I also want to say thank you to Melissa Regan, who I knew while I was at Trinity. Thank you to Yarel, who was a year ahead of me, and we've kept in touch. In fact, one of those I think it was Procter & Gamble, one of those shoots in the brands that she mentioned, her family was featured in one of our shoots. So it's about that Trinity connection. And we're going to talk a lot tonight about connection and how important making connections is. But the most important connection you could ever make is with yourself. Like Yarel said, I am a certified professional coach. I was a sociology major at Trinity. So some fun facts about me. Some people on here already know this about me, but I lived in Jones my freshman year, which was always sort of a joke and funny that Tanya Jones lived in Jones. And one of my classmates that lived next door to me was Ray Jones. So I always thought that was kind of like a funny thing. My parents got a kick out of it then. My first job at Trinity, because I had many jobs at Trinity. I worked for campus safety. I worked in the music library, which was like the best hidden secret. You paid $10 an hour and you can just like, you basically were there to help people pick out music for their classes. And it was quiet in the library. That's where I got my work done if I wasn't socializing. So my first job at Trinity was in career counseling. I was also the first recipient of the Black Alumni Organization Scholarship. I was a Trinitone, which I am proud to wear that badge. I always say Trinitones was my version of a sorority. I sang with the Trinitones for 4 years. I was also an RA. I was the RA in Jones dorm. So I lived in Jones too, 2 years in a row. And then I moved on to, I believe I was in high rise, which was always fun, and then new dorm. And I don't know if these names have changed since. I've been to, I think, every reunion, but I'm not sure if they're all still the same names. And I was also class secretary. And the biggest kick I get out of all of these fun facts is that I played a cow in Animal Farm that was directed by Jerry Moshel. So some fun facts for you to get to kind of know me and who Tanya Jones was on Trinity's campus. So tonight's request, I just ask that you guys be open. I'm your coach for tonight. And coaching is not any form of legal service. It is not therapy. It's not spiritual guidance. I'm really going to spend tonight taking you through a little bit of a journey in which you get to see what I go to coach clients to success, really, to breakthrough. I coach clients one-to-one, and I also have coached in groups. And part of the reason why I wanted to be here tonight was to share that with you, because I do believe how I was taught and trained to coach is really beneficial to anyone who shows up and is open to it. So tonight, see me as your support, see me as your guide, but also be open to this coaching session, this group. This is a community. Like Urel said, like, let's keep it safe. And I want us to all sort of feel unapologetic. You might see things flying across my screen. You're gonna hear noise. I'm on 127th Street in Harlem in New York. It's okay. We're letting our hair down. I think we have a very diverse group of women here and men here tonight. So part of who I am and how I coach is we get real. So this is real talk, and we get to really play also. And that's one thing I love about coaching is we get to play. And Melissa and Urel, just so you know, I'm also keeping an eye on my time. I'm going to try and get in like a fun guided visualization towards the end, depending on if you have questions. I am looking for folks who want to be coached. If you have some area in your life where you're feeling a little stuck, or you want to just look at, most people come to me for career, but I always say career is personal. So when we talk about coaching with me, when the way I was trained was really mind, body, soul, because it all works together. If you want executive coaching, you can still get executive coaching, but we're going to look at all of those three components, because guess what? That's who you are. All of those things add up to who you are and how you present yourself in the world. I will be trying to look back and forth at the chat. I may encourage you guys at times to engage in the chat. I may not be able to see what's happening, but please, as I'm asking questions, answer those questions. Come to tonight's call. If you're stuck in the area, I know a lot of people are sort of stuck around, wanting to free up time. I hear from so many mothers, and I mostly coach women who are right now, the clients who are coming to me are looking for like time management. They're looking for a place to do something that they're passionate about, that's about them and not about everybody else. So any areas like that you want to bring into this, you don't have to share, but take yourself on a journey with me. I'm here to guide you through it. Like I said, if you want to be coached, we will open it up for, we may have time for 1 or 2 quick coaching sessions. And I just encourage you to take notes. I'm old school. I like to write, but if you like to type. If you want to bring a journal, one thing that I do that I love that I just started doing with my own therapist was I ask her to ask me a question at the end of my sessions, and then I journal about that on Saturdays in my journaling group. So that might be something you want to incorporate tonight. So we talked about the bio, we talked about those things, those fun facts from Trinity, but here's part of like my bio. The truth is that all of those things have happened and those accomplishments, they're great. I feel very proud of my education at Trinity, my education before at the Agnes Soren School outside of Philadelphia, my family, all of the career achievements. But part of that bio, and this is where we talk about in coaching, this is where you get underneath. So if I'm going to get underneath all of those accomplishments, I'm going to talk about the moments in my life where I was broken, where I felt really lost, where I felt unfulfilled in relationships and unfulfilled by my job, where I felt scattered and all over the place and not managing my time well. Through those times, I've also been able to create breakthrough. It's part of the reason why I'm a coach, because I've actually taken some of those guiding principles of coaching and incorporated it into my life. But guess what? I'm still broken at times. I'm still lost. I'm still unfulfilled and still scattered. But I know that I can find ways to get myself to create breakthrough, to work on my own healing, not to look outside for anyone to do that, but to really ask myself those questions I'm going to ask you tonight. Finding support is huge. You know, what does support look like in your life? Who is showing up for you? Finding my voice, that's what I've had to do. I'm still finding my voice. I think we all are, especially if you're on this call and you're, you know, you just graduated and now you're in this real world and you're working. If you've been in the real world for a minute and you're in your 40s and you've raised kids, we're still finding our voice. And that's so important, especially to, and I can only speak to my experience coaching women. Women are always looking for that voice to get centered and grounded. And trusting myself, trusting yourself. I had a client the other day, actually just yesterday, after asking her some questions around what was holding her back to look for that job. You know, she came to the call, she wanted to brainstorm ideas on what is that job for me? What's going to give me that flexibility and get me not to work from home all the time? So we looked at that, but guess what? After asking her a series of questions on her own, and again, as a coach, I don't tell you what to do. I've had clients show up to me and they've got the pen and pad and ready to write it out. I don't do that. I actually ask you questions and together we peel it away. You're doing the work, you're showing up. But what my client basically shared, which was a surprise to me, is that she doesn't trust herself. So she's coming to coaching to figure out her career, but she doesn't trust herself. So before we can get to the brainstorm, we've got to get into why she's not trusting herself. So that is part of my journey too. You're going to hear things tonight that resonate with you because there's so many commonalities with us. And there are some of us on this call who are really knee deep in our careers and we're about the achievements, but there might be parts of us that may feel lonely, might be longing for a partner, might be longing for more community. So you're going to hear things tonight that I'm sure you'll be able to connect with. So tonight's conversation, I'm just going to kind of take us through. Again, these are using some of the topics and the practices that I use as a coach. I did my training with Leadership That Works. It was a 9-month training in which I was coached by my peers. I coached my peers, but I also coach people. After a week of training, I was coaching people. And what we do is we look at sort of this, I'm calling it the act of unlocking, but like, why are we here tonight? Why did you show up? There might be something that you want to unlock for yourself. So we're going to walk through that, the act of unlocking, and define like what gifts are. What I define as gifts might be different from what you define as gifts, but I'm going to show you why I define it the way that I do. We're going to look at needs and values. That is always number one for me with my clients. What is missing for you? How do we define your needs? How do we look at your values and act interchangeably? So sometimes you know what you value, but you can't define what your need is. You can't communicate that, or you've had a hard time communicating it because you haven't connected with it. So one of the first places we look in those areas where you feel like, oh, something is not right about this, and this is why, you know, I can't move forward. Well, what do you need around that? And what are your values, or what do you value? And then what do you need? And that's personal, that's within yourself. That's the relationships you have with your boss, with your spouse, your partner, with your kids, your family, and in career. And then what do you really believe? You know, my client was brave enough and vulnerable enough yesterday to say, I don't trust myself. That is a belief. And it might be a partial belief for her, but that belief exists, that voice is coming up. So we're going to talk about that voice, because that voice shows up a lot in when you're in and out of alignment. So when you're out of alignment, that inner critic will come in and have a field day with you. Some people call that inner critic the imposter. Some people call it your ego, but that voice is probably the hardest voice to quiet. So I work with clients and we try to quiet that voice and then look at what's possible. What else is possible? Because I think I can speak for so many of us. We can always define what's not working and why it's not working and who's to blame for it and why it's hard. What we don't spend a lot of time in and where we don't dwell is in possibility. When I even say the word possibility, did you just see my face light up? Because it's like, oh my God, there's actually a possibility. There's a possibility that Mama Bear Media Group is going to be the bomb and that people are going to come to me and they're going to want me to create this content and it'll be a success. Like that's a possibility. And that's why I started this company. So we'll look at possibilities and how those possibilities can really guide you. How do we amplify what's possible for our life? So I'm just going to get started with what it means to unlock, and when I sat and I closed my eyes a lot and I visualize unlocking. So part of what we do in coaching is to get you like there. So if you're in your seats right now, if you want to stand up, like just close your eyes and think about what unlocking looks like to you. And you can put it in the chat as well. This is where we can light up that chat box. What does it feel like to unlock something? So for me, unlocking is exploring. With my coach, my clients, we go on this journey, and it's a different journey every session. It's not like we're bridging together what we did the last time. It's what's showing up in the present. So what is showing up for you? What do you want to explore? I see the chats going up, so that's great. Keep talking to each other. Unlocking is often about finding what's hidden. There's often times we don't even know what we're tapping into. We don't even know the power we have. We don't know that certain things have been buried and that they just need to be pulled out. So you'll hear me tonight ask a lot of questions. You're going to be like, did this girl give me any nuggets? Because all I'm hearing is questions and questions. But guess what? I ask you those questions and you get to take the time tonight to think about it, to write down answers to them, and to let it allow you to connect with where you're stuck or you're feeling like you want some movement in your life. So to discover what's there, to unlearn, often while we're in this process of exploring, we're unlearning things. We've all been conditioned to believe what we're supposed to be doing in our 40s. And why am I not here? And I'm this age. You get to unlearn through this process of unlocking. You get to pull it apart. Again, thinking about what does it look like to unlock to you? And I use my hands a lot, as you can see, but it's like unlocking to me with my client is like, yes. It's like pulling apart that cheese, that you're stretching, or the dough that you're stretching while you're trying to create pizza. And of course I go to food, but it's that pulling apart. And when you see that dough just nicely stretch, pull it apart, we open it, we break it free, and we free it up. So your gifts, I don't necessarily define gifts as what you're good at, what you've been told you're good at, and the characteristics. But to me, it's about how you navigate your success, how you navigate your happiness. What do you tap into to do that? And that for me is what is, again, you're talented at these things, but what does it take to be talented at that? What do you value? What do you need? Getting underneath it. So my gifts, I'm just going to share what I know. And I had to sit and think about this. My gift, I believe, is my capacity to see people's light, including my own. So I once heard someone say, I think it was Gabby Bernstein, be the light at work. Even if everyone is difficult and driving you crazy, be the light. And I was like, oh, whoa, I can be the light. So no matter how they're behaving, I can still maintain the core of who I am, to just chill and watch it all unfold, but not get so irritated and annoyed. And I can just still be the light and be positive. All right, let me try this. But I also had to see the light in other people, see that he's not a great manager, but He hired me, I'm here, and I need to collaborate with him in some way and make this work for me. So as I'm talking about my gifts, add your gifts to the chat as well. What do you think your gifts are? And your gift definition is, it's okay if it's different from mine. My other gift is leading and bringing people together to execute magic. It's what I do as a producer when I had to hire the crew and work on the scripting, work on the look and feel, but also bring together and see the light in my crew and see where the prop stylist came in and did his thing and see where the DP, the director of photography, could shoot so well, but also tapping into their light and tapping into their talents, but also like maybe just challenging them a little bit to go even more. So I do understand that that is a gift. I've been told this to provide and create connection. We're doing that tonight. I'm trying to help my clients create connection. I want you to be able to create connection with yourself and embodying a positive outlook. So again, those are my gifts. That's what I see. And I think those gifts are important. I think they're important to guide me and to help me navigate through all of the hard times and the lost and the brokenness and the unfulfilled parts of me. Needs and values. So that's one of the first things that we talk about in coaching is, what do you need? And if you can't name that need, what's missing? Because if you start with what's missing, that'll get you to that need. So what are you longing for? If you're in a career and you haven't been promoted, or you no longer want to do the grind and work 9 to 5 and experience burnout like so many of us have, like so many women have, especially during this pandemic, what are you longing for? And how do you communicate that? How do you communicate it to yourself? How do you honor it? How do you put that out to the world? And then again, getting underneath that, why is that desire important to you? If you notice with these questions, everything is open-ended. There's no yes or no here. It's really the questions that get you thinking like, I never thought about what's missing. What am I longing for? I never thought that I could long for anything. I mean, I have my family, I have my kids, but what are you longing for? Why is that important to you? So every question just kind of gets you deeper, deeper to the truth. And that's what this is all about. I just want to pause and say that. It's about what's authentically, like how you're authentically designed, how you want to live in this world, how you want to feel, and how you want to be in this world. And that's where the coaching, you come to a session or you're in I'm sure many people here have been coached, but part of the reason why I love coaching, and I'm someone who's experienced coaching and therapy, is because coaching takes what is present and takes you forward. You see that I asked you tonight, like, what's on your mind tonight? Where are you feeling stuck? Where do you feel like you need a little bit of help? You know, are there places where you haven't looked at your needs and values? You get to do that right now in this present moment. You know, if you haven't had a need met in a while, when was there a time when you had a need met? Values. So now that you know what's missing, what do you value about that? Why is that important to you? Where do you want these values to show up in your life? Do you only want them to show up as you parent your kids? Do you only want them to show up with your friends? Do they not get to bleed into your job and your career? And if you have these barriers around it, why are those barriers there? What would it look like to bring that value of connection to your job? What would it look like to bring the value of connection to your group of friends? And then how do you protect these values? How do you protect them, and how do you honor them moving forward? So then we get to beliefs. Like I told you, I had a client who, she didn't believe in herself. She didn't trust her decisions because so much of her life had been the same. She has this pattern of finding these jobs just to sort of get a job and make the money. So because there's been this history, right? This history and this pattern of choosing things that don't really fulfill you, why should she trust herself to make the decision to get there? And the biggest sort of aha for her yesterday was admitting that she didn't trust herself. So if she doesn't trust herself, how does she really show up and fulfill those needs and values around getting out of a job that doesn't make her happy? So what do you believe? And then how do those beliefs hold you back from getting what you want? And I'm sure if you took a guess, and you can guess in the chat and share, I'm going to just peek at the chat in a little bit, but like, what do you think does hold you back? What are the beliefs? A lot of us believe that, oh, you've been married for 15 years. You should stick it out for the kids. You should stay together with your spouse because that's what we've been taught to do and your parents did it. And where did that belief come from? And it's okay to have these things, I bring these up only as examples, but there's lots of things that we've been conditioned to believe. But when it comes down to the core of things, what is true for you? What is it that you want for your life? What is it that you believe? So think about that around, these areas where you can get stuck. Like, what do you really believe about it? And sometimes those truths hurt. Sometimes it's embarrassing to admit that you don't trust yourself. Sometimes you're looking at shame. I'm actually ashamed that I am 47 and, I don't own a car. That's not true for me at all because I don't like to drive, but just admitting that. And then why is it showing up for you? And then there could be beliefs that you believe, my client said yesterday, I said, what would you tell your brother? What would you tell your brother if there was something that he really wanted to do and he was a little afraid? What would you tell him? And she said, I would tell him that people are always getting jobs and there's always somebody out there to support you. So here she is. That's coming from her. This is what she would tell her brother, but she hasn't told herself. But she does believe that there's a possibility she'll get the job she wants. We just have to amplify that voice a little more. We just have to keep asking those questions and have her step in to be her courageous self and to understand what is really holding her back and where does that fear come from. So I'm just going to take a moment here. It's a lot of work. I'm sure it sounds that way to you that, it's a lot of questions to answer. It's a lot of introspection, but I guarantee you that when we show up and give ourselves and just carve out that time, and you don't have to have a coach to do that. You can ask these empowering questions of yourself. You can build a community. You can build a group where you ask each other these questions. But I guarantee you, if you stick with it, and you go through those needs and values and you look at what you believe about it, and then you take all of that, I call it curriculum all the time, then you get to look at the next part, which is like, where are you stuck? Where are you stuck or where do you feel out of alignment? Because normally in that out of alignment where you're just like, this doesn't feel right. I always say to people, honor the seeker within. If you sign up for a therapy, if you sign up for to get a trainer, if you sign up to go to the gym, there's something there that you want to literally move and get going. There's something there, you're seeking something out of it. Why not honor that seeking? Why not honor the seeker within? So when we get to look at what's out of alignment and why it's there, then we also get to look at how we get out of it, how we actually break through. What often happens, and we'll talk about this later in the series, I think Urel mentioned the series that are coming up around the imposter and all those things, even like the great quit. What will definitely come up in all those categories that she listed, deciding not to work-life balance, I guarantee you the inner critic is going to show up and have a field day with you. That inner critic is going to come and say, how are you thinking about leaving your job? You barely make the money now. How will you get benefits? How will you get to that job? Who is going to help you with childcare while you try to start your own business and become the entrepreneur and do the thing that you're most passionate about? And we all understand and know that those are realistic things, that these things happen. And of course, the idea of benefits. I'll tell you my own personal story very quickly. That I left my job. I left a corporate job that was paying me good money, where I got to travel and have nice dinners and dine with clients and create fantastic content and work with talented people. And for years and years and years, there was something that was telling me. That's why I became the coach, because something was missing. That's why I went from sociology to television, because there was something there. But during all of those moments, there was always a voice that came up to say, well, how could you leave there? And you make this good money and you have health benefits. And what would happen? Like, you are not going to have the same lifestyle. You're going to, what are you going to do instead? Who's going to hire you? All of those questions and those voices come up. And guess what? They're going to come up no matter what. I doubt there's anyone here who has the superpower of keeping those voices at bay. But that inner critic, here's what I would suggest and recommend to you. How is that inner critic serving you? How does I'm calling her a she because that's my inner critic. That's what she identifies as. But how is that inner critic serving you? And guess what? The inner critic can absolutely serve you. The inner critic can be there to tell you all the things that sound crazy, that you're an idiot to think about, right? But what we want to look at is, okay, how do you engage with that inner critic? Where does that inner critic come from? If you sat your inner critic across the table and you said to your inner critic, hey, you and we need to work together because you keep coming up and showing up in my life and you're holding me back. You're coming disguised as fear. You're coming disguised as me being out of alignment. You're coming from a place of shame. You're coming from a place of you're afraid to be courageous. So, hey, inner critic, we've got to do this together. So here's what's going to happen. You get to set that conversation and you get to play with the inner critic. How do you amplify this other person on the other side of the table, which is you, that really is longing for more? Why wouldn't you be able to really get what your heart desires, what you really want? And I can guarantee you that the inner critic will serve up paper upon paper about why it's so hard. Why is it so hard? Well, it's hard for you to find a nice man in New York City as a single woman because you have high standards. It's really hard for you to, they'll have pages and pages, that inner critic for you. But what you get to do is show up and say, there is something else out there, because why wouldn't I deserve that partner, that man? Why wouldn't I deserve an amazing job? Why wouldn't I be able to have that? Because of that inner critic's voice. So we look at that inner critic and we want to work with that inner critic and we want to challenge the inner critic. So I would say for you, think about a place in your life where you have told yourself over and over again that you can't, or you don't believe it can happen. And then what can you go to? You go to those needs and those values. What do you believe about it? And then what's possible? And if you can't come up with what's possible, ask your friend, ask your spouse, ask your kid. Often kids have the best comebacks for these questions where they know that you're stuck or they know that you're having a hard time. You'd be amazed at the wisdom that comes from a child. But going to the people that you know will show up for you and ask that question. So we're talking about breakthrough now. So let's just say you've had that amazing conversation with the inner critic. You walk away knowing, okay, now I know what to do. When that inner critic comes up, I have to switch lanes. I have to go from thank you, inner critic, what else is possible? And how do I honor those needs and values? And how do I work with the critic? And how do I challenge the critic, right? So beliefs while listening to the critic, and then what's possible. And here's the big thing. I've been on this kick lately. I call it my truth train, where I'm having really hard conversations with friends or people that I've had some sort of like issue with. And I ask myself, what am I willing to release? What will I let go of? And then what can I free myself of? But then what can I also replace it with? So if you decide that, in this, let's just say if it's the great quit, if you're willing to release the fear of the outcome of you quitting a job, and I'm not telling anybody here tonight to quit a job, don't come back to me and say that I did, but I would encourage you to ask these questions. So if you were to release that fear and say, you know what, I'm going to let that fear go today. And I'm just going to think about what's possible if I quit that job. And wow, I get to start my own coaching service. I get to start my own t-shirt making business. How would I go about that? Who would support me? So if you release the fear, what are you replacing it with? And you guys can add, ideas in the chat. Like when you release that fear, what do you replace that fear with? And I'm sure we've all done that already. I'm just checking in. It's 7:44. So I want to get to coaching someone. If anyone is interested in being coached tonight in this session, please let someone know. And I'm happy to coach you and give it, if it's 7:44, we could probably give it about 10 minutes. And if Yorel or Melissa, you see someone who wants to be coached, you can just cut in and tell me. If not, I have a replacement if no one wants to be coached. Lastly, so we've talked about needs and values. We've talked about beliefs being in and out of alignment. We've talked about the inner critic. We've talked about stuckness and trying to get out of that inner critic. I see you, Jessica. Wonderful. Now we get to do things like we've talked about what's possible, what is possible. So what is possible is that all these things that you desire can happen for you. And it takes work and it takes work and it takes some time and focus. So one of the things I like to do, I do want to leave you with this because I know it's like such a big one for me, for coaching, but also for people I've told about, is what's your metaphor or your image? Part of creating this vision is if you have this vision to just take time on the weekends and paint and sip wine and enjoy your time. Give me a metaphor or an image for that. What is that like? To do that is like what? To have that moment for yourself where you get to do something you're passionate about and that you love and that's quiet. One of the other things I love is writing a manifest letter. There's actually a group of psychic and mediums that told a friend of mine about this. And once I heard about it, I just thought it was fantastic. And hey, why not try it? But it's sitting down, when you have some time and it's quiet and you get to start with gratitude. So this letter you can write to, I actually thought about it as I was flat ironing my hair tonight. I'm going to write a manifest letter to myself. Before it's been thank you, universe. Thank you, creator. Now I'm actually going to write this thank you letter to myself. And you can choose, you can just say thank you and not place anyone there. But I have started with thank you, universe. The idea is that you get to write this letter full of gratitude. You can only work from a place of gratitude. And you write the letter as though that vision that you want is happening right now. So it's you steep yourself in this gratitude because you're so wow, this happened to me. I am loving this. I actually manifested the apartment that I'm living in. And I think it had a lot to do with this letter because I set an intention and I created the possibility through this letter. And the letter simply said, thank you for the apartment of my dreams. Thank you for the natural light that pours into the apartment almost in every room. I love walking into my living room and seeing the light pour onto my coffee table. I love that I feel cozy. I love that I'm entertaining finally in a space big enough to hold people. But the idea is that you're living it and embodying the gratitude, but you're seeing it and you're writing every detail around that vision. So whether it's the partner that you want in your life, the job that you want, and sometimes you look back at those letters, you're like, okay, I only got 3 of those. But guess what? You set the intention with what was possible. You might write a letter and you say, this hasn't happened yet. Rewrite your letter. Rewrite it. You could write a letter like that every few months. You can write it before 2022 comes up. Write it now, but embody it. And we do that a lot with coaching because you get to be connected to your own vision. I can't connect to it. Only you can, and you got to create it. The other thing that, if we had time for tonight, is seeing your future self. If you were to go on this journey, whether by boat or walking through a forest, and you found yourself, some of you are like, I would never be in a forest. But if you were to find yourself in your dream space, what would your future self say to you? How does she get there? How did he get there? What did they have to do to get there? Are they happy? They seem happy. What did they do to be happy? What did they do to have peace? What did they do? How did they get all of this beautiful artwork? Because they took that time to paint and sip wine. What did they tap into? So seeing your future self, meeting your future self, and allowing that future self to give you that wisdom. It may sound kind of kind of like out there and ethereal and just esoteric, but it's actually like, imagine when you were a kid and you were daydreaming and you were playing with toys and having conversations. You did all of those things then. So that idea of like visioning and imagining, you can feel it in your soul. You can feel it in your body. You can get inspired by it. How do you honor your new agreements with this vision? How will you honor that with the vision for what you want with that metaphor and the image? The metaphor and the image, you can keep taking it with you. It doesn't have to go away. And then what does support look like? Because I don't think we can do these things on our own. Who can you tap into? Who can hold you accountable? And how do you want to be held accountable? I will often give my clients challenges. In fact, I have to check in with the client from yesterday because she's speaking to somebody who might know some folks who have art studios in the city. So I'm going to check in with her on Friday and see if she had the conversation, just a check-in. You know, a lot of people come to me and they want to be held accountable. They want to be able to do the things that they keep telling themselves they can't do or they don't get to. But the accountability piece, when you get to start seeing that creation and seeing that vision happening, all right, so now it's beyond what's possible because it's happening. Now you get to actually see it come to life. And like, what could be better than that, to actually seeing something you didn't think you could do happen? Me quitting my job, it happened. And I am happy and I do not regret it. Am I making that money? No. But what I do feel is like I have ownership of my days. I'm at peace. And there's some days where I just want to go to happy hour a little bit earlier and get out of Dodge. So I want to say thank you. I do want to get to coaching. I think someone raised their hand, so I'm ready. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So thank you. You already saw the thank you slide. It's just the words thank you. But I am happy to coach someone who has a question.
I think it's Jessica, and I'm going to allow her to talk, and I think that should work.
Okay.
Jessica, let's test this out.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Jessica.
Hi.
Hi.
Before you get started, should I stop recording at this moment? Is that okay, or would you like me to keep recording?
You can stop. It's up to Jessica. If she feels this is helpful to others to view later on, you can stop it also. Jessica?
I'm comfortable.
Okay.
It makes sense to stop. Either way, I'm okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to keep it going.
All right. What's your question, Jessica? Tell me where you would like to be coached.
In my writing. So I am a poet.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had experiences to know that I'm decent, but I don't submit, and I would like to publish, but I'm not actually doing any of the work needed to get to that stage.
Okay. Where would you like to, so tell me what you would like to have happen in this. Let's say I give it 6 minutes. If we go a little bit over, I'll check in with Yorel and Melissa. What would you like to gain from this quick coaching session?
Just to see what questions to ask myself in terms of figuring out where I'm most stuck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to start by asking you, where do you think you're most stuck? So we talked about the inner critic, for instance, like what's coming up for you that gets you stuck?
I mean, man, she's pretty powerful. She says a lot. I think it's two things. It's one, it's just fear of rejection, right? Because when you submit pieces to different places, rejection is part of the game, but that's scary because my poetry is really personal. So it feels like a rejection of me and not just a rejection of my work. So I'm comfortable making myself small. So I'm like, nobody wants to read what I write. Who cares? Who cares that I wrote this? Like, nobody needs to hear this story. Like, there's Elizabeth Acevedo out there in the world, and there's these like other Latina writers who are big. Like, I don't need to jump in. That's good.
Yeah. So like you said, that inner critic, she shows up and she's going to ask you all those questions. So let me ask you, Jessica, What is it about your poetry that is important to you?
I'd want it to reach the people who I was, you know, like poetry is such a lifeline for me. If I could even just reach one person with something that I wrote and it helps them through a dark place.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would want.
That's what you would love. When it comes to poetry and your words, how have your words helped you?
It's helped me process things that I'm too afraid to look at in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
Reading other people's writing has made me feel like I wasn't alone.
Mm. Mm-hmm. And making you feel like you weren't alone. Go get underneath that a little bit. What is that like to not feel like you're not alone?
Sometimes it's the one thing between, sometimes it was very life or death. It was very much that I can get to the next moment because there are other people who feel the things that I do with the intensity that I do. And so I'm not alone in this island.
Mm-hmm.
And also just like some poets, they just capture so much in so little. And so I had a professor who said poets are the truth tellers, and that's why historians are jealous of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I really resonate with that, of like the poetry of witness, of being able to testify about the things in the world.
Mm-hmm. So so I'm hearing like truth is important to you. So walk me through that. What does truth look like to you? Because it sounds like if you're telling me about this, that comment or that quote about it, the true storytellers. So what is it about truth that you connect with? What do you want people to know about truth? What do you want them to know? What's true of you, even?
I want people to know that there are a plurality of truths, that my truth doesn't negate yours, and they can exist simultaneously. Even if we're in the same room, they're going to look different.
Mm-hmm. And why is that important for people to know, for you?
It's important because I feel like we look for so many ways to divide ourselves instead of looking for ways to celebrate difference and also to see how we're the same. And so the more truths that we know that are possible, the more we're open to giving ourselves permission for even bigger truths. Okay. That's convoluted, but I think that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And I hear the we and the we, but I want to hear, what is it about truth for you? So using what is your connection to truth?
My connection to truth. So I read Audre Lorde's Transformation of Silence into Language and Action all the time. And for me, the truth is breaking through, like not being silent about the things that hurt us anymore. Oh, I said this again. So truth is it's being able to not hide, to be fully present. And that's so hard sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And that's hard for?
It's hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why publishing is scary, because I feel like I am my truest self on the page.
Wow. Now you're telling some truth. So you're the truest self on a page. And what do you release with that truth? What do you get to release?
I release the silence.
Mm-hmm.
I release the pain. It doesn't live in me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I release the joy too, the like capturing of a moment.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to recognize, listening to you, that it's almost, I'm hearing like that this might be, and I'm going to use my words, but you can, use yours. I hear healing. I hear the self-care. I hear you naming your fears, but also naming your truths. So I wonder, how important is it for you to, you said, that you release the truth, it's in words on paper. Why is it important for you to get that out there to be published?
Because so much of my truth comes alive in connection.
Girl, say that again.
So much of my truth comes alive in connection.
So what can be, I'm going to wrap this up. If you could have something after this conversation that takes you into, whether it's continue on this journey to be published, knowing that you said it, the truth and the connection piece, you have to repeat it again for me. What can you take with you as you continue on this journey and this exploration of being published and getting that connection? What's your value here? What are you willing to honor?
I'm willing to honor how important it is for me to connect with other people, especially young girls and women and Latinas who look like me, who maybe don't see ourselves in different places. And instead of focusing on the fear of rejection of like, oh, nobody wants to see this, is more like, well, maybe the right person will.
And I'm just going to say this less as a coach, but an observer, is that you just named something pretty powerful, that is about connection, and you're talking about being in service and a purpose to other people. So I'm hearing a value there too. I'm hearing a need there. I'm hearing beliefs there. So if you're feeling, this out of alignment piece, I'm wondering, like you just said, that statement around like what you need to believe or remember to keep going. And as you take that with you, what does support look like? Where can you find support to help you amplify that even more? What do you need to do? Do you need to ask on this call? If anybody can guide me here, what would you like to do? What's one thing you can do within the next 24 hours to connect more and to value that desire for connection with your poetry? Name one thing.
I can reach out to my sister friends who are also writers.
And what will be your request?
I don't know. I guess the request would be is how do you get over the fear enough to just do your first submission? I think if I just do the first one, I can keep going. It's just I have to conquer that monster.
Well, will you do me a favor? Will you email me at Tanya D Jones at iCloud? And I want to hear how that goes. So I'm going to, if you're okay with this, you tell me, I want to follow up with you. And let's see where we can go with this. I want to follow up with you and support you. And then let's maybe like jump on the phone and do like a half-hour session, and let's expand it out a little more.
Okay.
All right. Tanya G Jones at iCloud. Tanya D as in Danielle, Jones at iCloud.
EANYA.
And if you need to listen to this recording again to get those powerful statements you made, because you made some big ones, you should, because those were your words and that was you connecting to those needs and those values and the fears, which I thank you for being courageous enough to be here and to share that, because I bet somebody listening in, talk about connection, heard you and can connect to that.
Okay.
So thank you. And thank you, everyone. It's 8:03. I don't know if people want to stay longer. Urel and Melissa, you tell me. But if anyone has questions, I'm here to answer questions. And people can also reach out to me and use my email as well.
So I want to say thank you to everyone, especially you, Tanya, for doing such important work. This is very powerful. And thank you to Jessica for being so vulnerable.
Yeah.
in putting herself out there.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to quickly share one of the comments that was shared with us.
Yes.
Beautiful, powerful, and honest. Thank you, Tanya, for your tool, and Jessica for sharing. Yes to giving ourselves permission to be and showing up in our fullness. Much blessings to all.
Yes. Amen.
And see, everything, of course, is of wonderful praise. Someone asked, how can we reach you for coaching if you're taking new clients?
Yeah, I put on my website there. You can email me at Tanya D Jones at iCloud, but my website is yourlifecoach.com. Yeah, and I hope everyone tunes back in December. That's going to be a pretty powerful conversation. I'm so excited for that as well. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Yarel. Thank you, Melissa. This is the stuff I love to talk about. And I do think it changes lives when we ask each other those empowering questions. So please keep asking yourself questions and share it with your tribe and your community.
And hopefully we'll see many of you on December 7th. I did get that right?
Yeah, it's December 7th. Yeah.
I'm only the program chair.
You're the producer. This is what happens.
So everyone, please have a wonderful evening, and make sure that you fill out that feedback and if there's some questions, put them also in the feedback, and we will share that also with Tanya. Otherwise, I hope that you saw in the chat the email for Tanya, which was Tanya D Jones at iCloud.com, as well as her website. Was that the website that I saw?
Yeah, yourlifecoach.com.
And actually, the Instagram is wonderful. So I highly recommend following
thank you.
Your Instagram.
Sweet.
Perfect.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great end to the rest of your week. Ask an empowering question. Take care.